10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
This is Diane Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Diane Andrews.
Hello, I'm Diane Andrews of Diane Andrews in Black and White. I'm your host, and I thank you for being out in the audience today. And I thank you out in TV land. We're a statewide program in Louisiana, headquartered out of Baton Rouge, but most of our guests come from all over the world. We talk about all kinds of different subjects. I recently interviewed a guy from Baghdad, Iraq. Today we're doing a show on whistleblowers. And people may say, what is that? What does being a whistleblower really mean? Well, what that is, and a lot of people probably have heard about it, is when a person, an employee usually of the government or of a company, turns that company in or exposes them for doing something fraudulent, illegal, or could be deemed as so. And Mike, thanks for being here with me today. I have Attorney Mike McCrae from Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. He's coming in. He drove up, and we thought it was going to take 7 hours. It only took him 5.5. So thanks for coming, Mike.
Couldn't wait to get here.
Yeah, I could come in now down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which he's kind of native to when you were with Acorn, right? Because he worked for Acorn. Some of you may remember Association for Community Reform Now, Acorn. About 8-9 years ago, a lady was in the news a lot. She was the leader of Acorn 8. And they exposed a lot of illegal dealings that Acorn was doing. And Acorn was headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana for many years.
That's correct.
As you told me, it started off as that A stood for, instead of Association Arkansas, it started in Arkansas.
Right.
But Wayne Reski, who was really the head of Acorn, learned all his techniques from George Wiley, a PhD in chemistry out of the East Coast, you had told me, Mike. Mm-hmm. Now, Mike comes to us not just from Acorn. This is a consummate whistleblower. He is, I call it 3.5 times. He whistleblew twice on Acorn. Once when he was at the USDA, and then once on mortgage fraud. Is that
right?
Well, I'll let you explain further. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and but Mike comes with Marcel Reed, who was the leader of Acorn 8, kind of, calls him the most educated man she knows. He has a CPA, and I don't think you're active now. But he also has JD. He's an attorney, but always wanted to head to New York toward Wall Street. So you're only licensed in the state of New York, right? Just in case one day you move up there, you'll be practicing law in New York. That's always been his dream. But he got to Washington, and you got all around. He worked for the USDA and a lot of other jobs. But he also has, I think, a Bachelor of Communication. Then you got a degree in economics. Because I was telling my brother's a PhD in economics. So you're very, very well educated. And now, when I read what you say you do, is you're doing your passion, I guess. You're helping people, human rights and public interest advocate is what you call yourself now, right. And a consultant in other ways. And you worked at Prairie View as an adjunct professor over in Texas. So tell us about this journey. I have to tell you, he loves Hillary Clinton. He loves the Clintons. I see Hillary Clinton campaign on your resume, Hillary Clinton, and you're from Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
So he started off, work for the Clintons, I guess, when you went to work in Washington. When you left Florida A&M, with the economics degree, where'd you go?
Well, I went to Washington, and so I was. I got my economics degree from Florida A&M, and I was at the famed business school,
right?
SBI, and so with them I had interned. I'd worked with SunTrust Bank in investment banking. Yeah. I'd worked for Johnson & Johnson in the personal products company in marketing. I'd also worked for Honeywell Information Systems. So, as you said, I really considered myself, I was headed to Wall Street.
Yeah.
I was accepted into Georgetown Law Center. Back then it was a top 10 law school, and a funny thing happened.
It's not now? Georgetown is not in the top 10 now?
Well, it teeters.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the current ranking is, but it was definitely top 10.
Yeah.
And I tell people a funny thing happened on my way to Wall Street. My governor ran for president, and he won. And
From Arkansas.
From Arkansas, Bill Clinton. And so I had worked then as a student organizer, working at Georgetown, at the Law Center, organizing students. And I got
For Clinton campaign.
For the Clinton campaign. And so I was blessed with being able to work on a White House initiative called the Empowerment Zones program. And some of you may remember it was actually a $4 billion appropriation. And it was basically designed to help underserved communities to revitalize and reinvigorate. And you know, I grew up in the rural South in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Unfortunately, my hometown had once been ranked the worst place to live in America.
Pine Bluff?
2 years in a row.
How large is Pine Bluff to even make the ranking?
Yeah, well, it ranks all metropolitan areas over 50,000 people.
So you're over 50 in Pine
Yeah,
Bluff.
so we're small. But so I basically had an opportunity to use my degrees and my education to work to revitalize places like my hometown. So I was kind of working in my passion. During that time, I happened to discover that there was a $40 million grant that was being awarded to a grantee that I knew personally was not capable of administering the grants. Part of my job—
That was with the USDA.
That was
working for the United States Department of Agriculture.
For the White House initiative, it was a White House initiative that was administered by HUD for the urban zones, USDA for the rural zones, and it was funded by HHS. So you kind of had a collaboration.
Yeah.
I happened to be working at that time for USDA in the Rural Development Mission area, and I was doing a lot of high-tech stuff. I was the webmaster for a White House web page that covered the empowerment zones and also USDA's, and we were—
And what year was this, Mike?
This was between 1994 and 1998.
Okay.
So we were doing virtual reality tours of the White House 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that was the type of stuff that I was working in. And again, I really found my passion. I was helping people, I was utilizing my skills and my trainings. And unfortunately, I discovered a $40 million that was essentially being misappropriated. In a nutshell, what had happened was then Secretary Mike Espy,
From Mississippi,
who had been a congressman, had come to was named Secretary of Agriculture, and essentially he was directing funding to his home district. Now, when you're in Congress, you can do that. Those were called earmarks. That was part of your job. You had to bring home the bacon.
Right.
There's a different rule of ethics. Once you cross over into the administration, everything was supposed to be merit-based by the regulations. And so I happened, because I was a person that was in charge of logging in the grant applications, I knew the scores. And so I knew that one of the worst performing applications was about to receive one of the largest grants. And so that's how I became a whistleblower. And contrary to popular belief, being a whistleblower, it's a proverbial whistle. You don't go blow a whistle. And all it takes to become a whistleblower is to ask the wrong question at the wrong time.
We just had a show on about a week or two ago with Mike Springman, and he talked about that when he whistleblew on diplomat. He was a diplomat in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and he's a whistleblower also with his book on the government. Sometimes you ask the wrong questions, you're going to get thrown out.
Right.
People
Well,
don't want to hear the question.
Well, what happens is, depending upon the question, it shows that you have a certain level of awareness.
Right.
And also, if
And
you
you
ask
have the audacity to ask
that's what I'm
about
saying.
it.
Well, no. You have that, and you're not a part of the good old boys or whatever.
Right.
You knew not to bring it out in secret.
Right.
So at that point in time, you identify yourself as a threat.
Right.
So what happens usually is that's when retaliation starts. So most people get to the point of blowing the whistle. It's a response to the retaliation. So you don't wake up one day and plan to be a whistleblower.
Right.
Generally speaking, what happens is you see something wrong, you try to fix it, whether it's based on your
or you
moral—
go to the people because you think they want to fix it too, that they don't understand this problem exists.
There you go. You think you're doing your job.
Right.
But then sometimes,
You work with whistleblowers with a conference that you all do in Washington, you and Marcel Reed, every year. And I spoke at your conference last year in July because I've written stories on Marcel about whistleblowing, and I do shows on whistleblowing with veterans and other agencies.
Absolutely.
So most people tell you, I didn't want to be a whistleblower, it just happened. And I teed off the wrong person when I asked this question. Next thing I knew, I lost my job, or I got demoted, or something happened.
And oftentimes, it's the Whistleblower Summit for Civil and Human Rights.
Right.
And it's anchored on National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, which is July 30th.
Which before they invited me to the summit, which was July 29th through 31st last year, and about that same time, I think, this year.
Right. Well, we anchored that. So it's always that week, because we want to bring attention to the fact that there is such a thing.
I didn't even know there was a summit. summit.
Right.
I know Charles Grassley, I think he's a Republican
From Iowa.
congressman, right, from Iowa. He's big, it seems, on trying to right some wrongs.
Absolutely.
And he spoke.
I call him the patron saint for whistleblowers.
Right,
That's
right.
one of his big issues. And,
Right.
you know, when you really think about it, what whistleblowers do, that we're essential to the First Amendment, because there's no free press without sources. You know, there's no congressional oversight without government informants. So literally, the whistleblowers are the fifth estate that protect freedom and liberty. And so that's one of the things that we try to push out at the summit. And we also have a place where we've created a community for whistleblowers, because generally after the discrimination and the retaliation, you get isolated, you get blacklisted.
I don't know if you know Shay Wilkes. I know Marcel does.
Yes.
Shay has been on my show before, and I did the show on the VA whistleblowers.
Right. Shay
And
came to the summit and did
yeah,
a
that's what
panel.
and he spoke to Congress. In
Right.
fact, I talked to him yesterday. He was going to come down here because he's done an ISIS show with me also, and but he was sick. But Shay and I talked, and how he found himself able to keep his job at the Shreveport, Louisiana VA hospital, where he thought through scheduling 38 veterans had died because they had been misscheduled or not scheduled at all. But he created the Truth Tellers, this organization, VA Truth Tellers, so there's safety in numbers, he was
Right.
saying. And so that was
Right.
very smart of him to go out, and so they can't really fire him in Shreveport or get rid of him. I think he hasn't seen as much retaliation since he started that as he saw in the beginning.
Well, there's always, you know, there are different trains of thought. I belong to that school of thought, that I think that you need to go public, and I think you need visibility, and that becomes one of your biggest offenses. There's some people that would tell people, you know, don't blow the whistle if you don't have to, or to blow
But
it.
again, they don't know they're
right.
blowing it, Mike,
well, exactly.
in the beginning.
Right, no, and that's my other point, is
Yeah.
that people don't really plan to do this.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll say that if you blow the whistle, you know, blow it through the NAACP, or don't let your your fingers get on it.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, especially in the age that we live in, it's not going to be secret.
Right.
You know, eventually, even if you try to remain anonymous, they're going to know that you blew the whistle, and the retaliation is going to increase.
And it's scary. It can be very scary.
Oh, it can be devastating.
That's right.
And so that's why I believe in coming out of the shadows and to work with other people, form groups,
Right.
be engaged in advocacy.
Right.
Those things all, I mean, one is it helps you keep your sanity, because you're also going through a lot of losses.
Right.
And also there's strength in numbers.
So a lot of people I met at the Whistleblower Summit, I mean, their whole life had changed. You know, they lost their wife, they lost their family because they whistleblew, and they got fired, they didn't have any
Right.
money. I mean, they just saw a snowballing effect down the hill.
Right, right.
So it's something you have to think. You want to do the right thing, but if you think you're teeing off a lot of the high-powered people, you really have to think long and hard before you decide to take this path, is what I would tell people from what I saw at the summit.
Right. Well, again, the people that are being proactive about it. But
Yeah.
again, there's a lot of people that wind up formally blowing the whistle. The retaliation has already started.
Right.
And so then it's like, how do you get off this train?
But think before you ask the question. But a lot of times you don't know you're asking the wrong
Well,
questions when you uncover these
Exactly.
big losses.
Right.
Now, what do you talk about in your book, Race, Power, and Politics? What are you
Okay.
talking about?
I am giving the story. This is the insider's perspective on Acorn. And again, when after I blew the whistle at USDA and kind of
Oh, you
lost
had
that
a
position.
second one. That's right. What about the mortgage fraud?
Well, after I left the federal government, I started to work for a small boutique hotel development company, a black-owned company in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it happened to
Downtown Atlanta, across the Ritz-Carlton.
it happened
Great
to be
property.
a black-owned black hotel developer by the name of Courtney Dillard had acquired this hotel. Historic hotel. It was called the Hotel Winecoff, and again, it was next door to, right across the street from Macy's, catty corner from the Ritz-Carlton.
Yeah.
And
Great location.
essentially, this deal was 50% of the deal that Donald Trump did in New York called the Commodore Hotel.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So we literally had an up-and-coming
That's the
African
one he
American.
made into the Grand Hyatt, isn't
That's the one that, and it's the
Near
one
the
that
train
formed
station.
the centerpiece of his holdings.
That's
And
right.
You're able to leverage that
Yeah.
into many more, now billions of dollars.
Right.
So we actually had we had a black Donald Trump
Right.
up and coming. And I was a partner in that, and
He's from Arkansas?
well, he's from Georgia. He's from Atlanta, but he got involved in. He was the victim of commercial mortgage fraud. Now this was in 1999, and we didn't. Right now, everybody understands what securities fraud is,
Right.
foreclosure fraud. Back then, people didn't know you could actually steal a hotel. I mean, it just seemed so
Bizarre,
ridiculous. Bizarre,
yeah.
right. And so we called it. It was Grand Theft Hotel, but as we were trying to fight back and combat that problem, we went to the NAACP. They didn't return our phone calls. We went to the Southern Christian Leadership.
Now, let me ask you that, because one of your positive things was go to the NAACP, telling people something, well, go to an organization. So you did do that, and they didn't return the call.
Absolutely.
Why would you think?
Well, there are different issues. You have to be able to figure out how to get the organization's
There are politics
attention.
in that too.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is. Sometimes if you're not at the right level, you don't know the right person, you can't get to the board. If you just knock on the door, you may or may not. I mean, we got no response.
Wow.
We went to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and they started off being interested in it, but ultimately, and they did help a lot. They helped a lot, but ultimately, phone calls were made and influence was wielded, and the SCLC dropped us. And so then
phone calls were made from people from Washington, maybe to them trying to stop them from the help.
Well, from City Hall in Atlanta. In Atlanta. So it wasn't that deal.
Okay.
And then we finally went.
But still, the powers that be kind of stopped them from. If you do this with them, this may happen to you. So there was even retaliation can be potential against them.
Right. Well, right. Well, whether it's retaliation or inducement.
Right.
So, here's the carrot or the stick.
Right.
Either way, when the going kind of got rough.
Dropped.
Yeah, we found ourselves alone once again. And then I heard about an organization that was called the Association of Community Organizations for Reform Now, Acorn. And one of the biggest things about them, Acorn, is they weren't scared, and once they took up a fight, they didn't let go.
Now let's talk about that a little bit, because Acorn had 400,000 families.
Member families.
And they paid to be in that organization $10 about a month, I think $100 to $120.
Sure.
But they had lower middle class people, I think, in Acorn, right? And not really middle class? Or?
Well, Acorn, again, as you said, Dr. George Wiley, that was the African-American PhD in chemistry, and he had started the National Welfare Organization. That organization...
Which is community organizing.
Still community organizing.
Like Saul Alinsky and people rule for radicals.
Well, again, we're talking 1960s when there are all types of neighborhood associations and community groups.
I will say Barack Obama was the legal counsel for Acorn.
He was a trainer.
A trainer?
He was a trainer
He wasn't a legal counsel.
No, he was a trainer for Acorn in Chicago.
Out of Chicago. Only. Okay.
Right. And so, but anyway, so the National Welfare NWO, National Welfare Organization, it was strong, but one of its limitations was it was designed for lower class people. You were able to assemble those people.
Right.
At some point in time, they decided that the tactics were working, but we needed to broaden it to include middle class and working class families. Right. And so that's how the idea for Acorn came.
Right. Then you have more power.
Exactly.
You expand to higher levels.
Right. And so Wade Rathke, who was a organizer for NWO, which was headed by George Wiley, was sent to Little Rock to form this new organization. And so again, I mean, Wade gets all the credit that Wade is due, but he wasn't the only one. And again, he was sent down here.
But you still think he was a genius in community organizing?
Well, the thing is, after George Wiley died or disappeared.
He died?
He disappeared.
Disappeared.
And mind you, got to remember, in the 1960s, there was a thing called COINTELPRO. And so a lot of our leaders that were very powerful, very militant people got assassinated.
Is this like Hoffa, who they say is down in some cement with the unions? I don't know.
Whether it's Hoffa, whether it's Malcolm X, whether it's Martin Luther King, whether it's...
Well, we know what happened to King, and Malcolm.
And
but this
Vice
guy
Lords.
disappeared.
Well, there was a boating accident on the Chesapeake Bay.
Never found the body.
That's all I know. And
who had he made upset? Who didn't like him?
The National Welfare Organizations they were
powerful.
Militant. Yeah, they were very strong, and it was strong.
When you say militant, we're not talking about the Black Panther kind of militant. What militant are we?
Well, okay, they weren't carrying shotguns into City Hall.
Right, in California.
But a lot of one of the things that any direct action organization does, Acorn would do, we would protest outdoors and picket and whatnot, but Acorn would also put 1,000 people in your lobby, in your banking business, to get your attention. So, there's also militant, there's peaceful lobbying and marching, and there's peaceful protesting. There's
like
also
on the bridge in San Francisco the other day. It's not Black Lives Matter, but it's an association with them, and they had thousands of black people on the bridge stopping the traffic in San Francisco this week. Yeah, so that kind of thing.
Right, that kind of thing, right. And so you can wield a lot of power. And so again, I don't know how long J. Edgar Hoover's friends list and enemies list went, but to me it's not inconceivable that George Wiley would have been the type of person that was probably recognized in COINTELPRO.
As far as your standpoint, he was the biggest and the brightest in community organizing and from a black person. standpoint?
Well, there were lots, but his name should be in that same pantheon.
Now let me ask you, when you look at Acorn, what percentage was it black? Are we talking half, 70%, 80? What are we talking?
So now we have a new organization that's following the same model as NWO, but it's designed to include not only low income people, but also
middle class number.
Working. Well, let's say working
class. Okay.
Right. And so therefore the racial diversity, it's mixed. It's poor whites, it's poor blacks, it's Hispanics, it's some. Now here's the deal.
We're going to have to close out in a second.
Okay.
Mike, but you think Acorn was successful, except Acorn 8 ended up.
Acorn was tremendously successful. It flew under the radar for so long. Again, Acorn was much more powerful than NAACP. Acorn was much more powerful than the SCLC.
And it was mostly black. Is that what you're saying?
A large
80%?
more. I would say probably.
Wayne Gretzky was a white guy who.
Right. Well, yeah. But again, it was because
more than 50%, and we're 13% of the population. So it was.
Right. Well, because it's also targeted towards the lower class.
Right.
So we're overrepresented in terms of poverty statistics. Right. So, but it was a good mix.
Everybody, I'm going to close it out. You may remember Acorn, that with the lady, wasn't it a prostitute, and they went into one of the Acorn offices. I'm just trying to make people remember the Acorn situation.
Right.
May not have been true.
Right.
But you remember the guy said that the workers in Acorn were going to help them.
Yeah, that was a lie. that was a lie. But
that's how you may remember Acorn 8.
But the truth is in Race, Power, and Politics.
Yeah, this is his book. Where can I get the book?
Anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, your local library.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for driving in.
Okay. Thank you so
and I'll
much.
be back at your summit this year, the Whistleblower Summit. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Thank you.
Come on back to Diane Andrews in Black and White.
Order your copies now of Diane Andrews' latest books, Third Man Out, a suspenseful mystery by Diane Andrews, and Gumbo for the Heart, 25 stories of faith, hope, and charity, both available now on Amazon.com.
Your host of Diane Andrews in Black and White, a statewide program and on YouTube. Watch us, you'll see an HIV positive person's journey. You'll hear us make a telephone call to a Shia Muslim in Baghdad, Iraq. You'll also see the Vice President of Lamar Billboard Advertising come in and talk about how advertising can make you more successful. Come on and watch Diane Andrews in Black and White. You'll be happy you did.
Thank you for coming back to Diane Andrews in Black and White. We were talking about whistleblowing and things that are a little not as energetic as what we're going to talk about now. A friend of mine has a show been going on 9 years now, My Scene. I have his graphic designer here with me, Javon Hamilton. Thanks for being here, Javon, to talk about and give a little push to My Scene for Ken Bloxson.
Thanks for finally having me.
Yeah, you've been trying to get on a while, but this one I say I may have an opening. Come on in. And so, Javon, tell us what My Scene is about and what part you play in My Scene.
My Scene is basically like a local entertainment talk show. We bring the latest in local entertainment, so that's food, music, and fun. And what I do is mostly graphics. I do a little bit of hosting. I have my own video blog series called...
Yeah, I saw that hosting you did.
Right.
Yeah, you did good. I think I texted you. Yeah, you did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
you did text me.
Yeah.
I have my own video blog series called Javon Does Baton Rouge. Ken liked those so much that he featured them on there. I did Chicken Shack and...
Oh, I did. Yeah, I saw that. You did chicken. I saw it.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm a bit of a foodie, so it's a little bit of everything that we do on there.
But you say local, but I know Ken has someone in Dallas and someone in China.
Dallas and
Japan
Korea.
Or something. Korea, is it Korea?
And we're looking to expand in New Orleans also.
Right, that'll be great. So you're going to expand to New Orleans.
Yes.
And you're what would you compare for people who have never seen My Scene? What would you compare it to so they'll understand?
I say it's maybe like our own kind of like Entertainment Tonight type of show.
Entertainment Tonight, but locally.
But locally.
Now, do you bring in a lot of people to interview, or are you mostly just out in the scene where the music is going on? Or I know you go to restaurants sometimes and feature them.
It's actually a little bit of both. Music is in heavy rotation also because, music is kind of like a dime a dozen. So we get a lot of bands, we get a lot of rappers, but we also do like a lot of restaurants and profiles and things like that.
Now, I know from Ken and I work together, and he uses my studio here like you all use it. And
the green screen goes up right over there.
Right, you see I just painted the room green in there, yeah, for the green screen. But tell me, what do you think, and what is Ken's vision for MySing? Do you know what it is, or should Ken is a behind the scenes guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to come on.
Ken wants to make MySing like the ultimate source for what's going on here in Baton Rouge and beyond.
And now New Orleans.
And now
you're
New
going
Orleans,
to Dallas,
Korea,
right.
soon Atlanta, and possibly DC.
Oh, good. I know the guy in Dallas used to live here, I think, and work for him in MySing.
He's from New Orleans, and he was on the pilot in 2005.
Yeah, because you all have been going. 2005 was the pilot, and you really started, I think, in 2007.
After
so
Katrina.
you've been 9 years.
Yep.
Because he was going to do it in New Orleans at first,
Right.
and then Baton Rouge with Katrina. What happened? We all know what happened then.
Yeah, I'm one of the evacuees.
Now, how long have you been with MySing? You're
I've
from
been
New
with
Orleans.
I'm from born
I
and raised in
didn't
New
know
Orleans.
that. Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right.
I've
Tell me
been
what
with
things you've done. I've seen the website is really Ken's big deal. You all get, 3,000
Yep.
hits a week or something on
Yep, per week.
a week on your MySing page. And you do most of the graphics on that page, right?
Yes, I did the website, did the broadcast graphics, the social media, things like that. So I definitely have a lot on my plate. But
In fact, I know you and I are going to be talking about doing some things we've talked about before for Diane Andrews in Black and White. And he was telling me that you watched the show since I started, I guess, huh?
I think my first episode was maybe a third show.
The third show. Well, that's almost since I started. Yeah, I've been doing this about 16 months now. Yeah, we got, after the day, it'll be, 56 shows out there. And I have a full-time job. And like I said, I'm like Trump. I pay for this myself.
Exactly.
So I can do what
Exactly.
I can. Yeah, we're independent out here. So we need more people supporting doing different things as we're independent to keep us on the air. But thanks for coming. I'm going to do my famous close. When I was a little girl growing up in Rouge, Louisiana, a little small town, I watched a show on Sundays, a spiritual show. And every Sunday they would light this candle, because people tell me, well, why don't you get one of those, fireplace machines to do it? Why do you still use a match and candles? It's because that's what I saw, and that's what stuck to me, was this match going down into the candle, lighting it. And they would say, if everyone lit just one little candle, what a bright world this would be. And that's how I tried to live my life. I tried to shine lights on different situations, and really that's what the show is about. Recently we've done things all about kids. I brought an HIV person in from New Orleans with a doctor to talk about how to prevent, if you can, AIDS, or precautions for not to get HIV/AIDS. We explained to you what it really was and gave you places to go and get tested. So that's what we do here at Diane Andrews in Black and White, and it's better to find your passion at least one time in life. Me and Giselle Harrison and Charmaine Lewis talked about that in one of the shows we did on All About Kids. So when you find your passion, go for it. And keep that light burning in your life, and keep it burning around everybody you can. Stay away from negativity. See you next time. Diane Andrews in Black and White. Bye-bye.
Your host of Diane Andrews in Black and White, a statewide program and on YouTube. Watch us, you'll see an HIV positive person's journey. You'll hear us make a telephone call to a Shia Muslim in Baghdad, Iraq. You'll also see the Vice President of Lamar Billboard Advertising come in and talk about how advertising can make you more successful. Come on and watch Diane Andrews in Black and White. You'll be happy you did.